watching Real Simple News with Science on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. I am your host, Cale McCullough, the captain of the Kabuki Starship, and tonight, top news, science news, is that a star traveling at 8% of the speed of light yields clues into interstellar travel, and the Extinction Rebellion stages a mass nude protest over the sixth mass extinction that is certifiably not happening. Real Simple News is an open source news organization, and you can find us at GitHub at github.com/Real Simple News. But it can be a little bit confusing to get to the issue ticket if you don't know GitHub. So it's easier to go to realsimplenews.net/issue 81, where you can find a link to this video, as well as a link to the issue ticket that you just saw, issue ticket 81. And as well, you can make a donation to keep the show going and keep it improving. All donations go to funding AI research into WikiSpy, which is an open source tool that monitors Wikipedia for tampering by hostile agents and political bias, as well as the Freedom Government, an open source model of our government, and open source AI attorney to write you court papers and be a backup defender, as well as the A Startup disability assistance, memory augmentation, and educational and productivity technology. And in the top news article here is coming at us from Hacker News Best. No, just Hacker News, not Hacker News Best, sorry. And it's via physics.org. It says, the fastest star ever seen moving at 8% of the speed of light. So here we can see there's a graph of the different bodies that they've tracked. And so this is the radius here on the x-axis and the enclosed mass on the y-axis. And then we could see, I think it's right here. In the center of our galaxy, hundreds of stars closely orbit a supermassive black hole. Most of these stars have large enough orbits that their motion is described by Newton's gravity and Kepler's law of motion, but a few orbit so closely that their orbit can only be accurately described by Einstein's theory of general relativity. The star with the smallest orbit is known as S61. Its closest approach to the black hole has it moving at more than 8% of the speed of light. That is absolutely mind-bogglingly fast. Our galaxy's supermassive black hole, known as Sagittarius A star, or SGR A star, it is a mass about 4 million suns, and we know this because of the star that orbits it. For decades, astronomers have tracked the motion of these stars. By calculating their orbits, we can determine the mass of Sagittarius A star. In recent years, our observations have become so precise that we can measure more than the black hole's mass. We can test whether our understanding of black holes is accurate. The most studied star orbiting Sagittarius A star is known as S2. It's a bright blue giant star that orbits the black hole every 16 years. In 2018, S2 made its closest approach to the black hole giving us a chance to observe an effect relatively known as gravitational redshift. If you toss a ball up in the air, it slows down as it rises. If you shine a beam of light into the sky, the light doesn't slow down, but gravity does take away some of its energy. So the gravity is actually attracting the photon. As a result, a beam of light becomes redshifted as it climbs out of a gravitational well. This effect has been observed in the lab, but S2 gives us a chance to see it in the real world. Sure enough, at the close approach, the light of S2 shifted to the red just as predicted. For years, S2 is thought to be the closest star to Sagittarius A star. But when S62 was discovered, then S62 was discovered. As a team recently discovered, it's a star about twice as massive as the Sun that orbits the black hole about every 10 years. By their calculations, at the closest approach, its speed approaches 8% of the speed of light. That's so fast that time dilation comes into play. An hour at S62 would last about 100 Earth minutes. And so this is giving us a insight. Whenever they say time is slowing down, there's actually a really, really good explanation for why this is slowing down. If you think of gravity not as a pulling force, but as a pushing force instead, we'll cover here in a moment my theory of thermal relativity that I came up with, which I'm not a physicist, I'm a computer engineer, but I've come up with a very eloquent way to explain how black holes work through treating the suns and black holes as if they're heat-sinking missiles. So you'll hear more on that in a moment here. Because of its proximity to SGR A star, S62 doesn't follow the Keplerian orbit. Rather than being a simple ellipse, it follows a spirograph motion by which its orbit processes proceeds? What is that word? Okay. Not seeing a definition of it, so this is a technical term. Which orbit precedes about 10 degrees with each cycle. This kind of relativistic precision was first observed with the orbit of Mercury, but was only as a small effect. In the fall of 2022, S62 will make another close approach to SGR-A star. It should allow astronomers to test the effect of relativity even more precisely than the close approach of S2. So now we're going to go into this, why the time is slowing down. This discovery was made last year, and I used this discovery to come up with the law of thermal, well, hold on, it's not law. The theory of thermal relativity. Yeah, that would be crazy. So this is a paper, this is on nature.com, and then this is a paper that they published. We're going to read the abstract here. It says heat transfers in a solid typically conducted through either electrons or atomic vibrations known as phonons. In a vacuum, heat has long been thought to be transferred by radiation, but not phonons because of the lack of medium. Recent theory, however, has predicted that quantum fluctuations of electromagnetic fields could introduce phonon coupling across a vacuum and therefore facilitate heat transfer. Revealing this unique quantum effect experimentally would bring fundamental insights into quantum thermodynamics, the practical implications to thermal management and nanometer scale technologies. Here we experimentally demonstrate heat transfer induced by quantum fluctuations between two objects separated by a vacuum gap. We use nanomechanical systems to realize strong phonon coupling through vacuum fluctuations, observe the exchange of thermal energy between individual phonon modes, and experimental observation agrees with our theoretical calculations and is ubiquitously distinguished from other effects such as near-field radiation and electrostatic interaction. Our discovery of phonon transport through quantum fluctuations represents a previously unknown mechanism of heat transfer, in addition to the conventional conduction, convection, and radiation. It paves the way for exploitation in quantum vacuum and energy transport at the nano scale. So this is best described as the spooky action at a distance, when particles are moving other particles through mechanisms that we don't know exist. So we're going to put on our science goggles here. We're going to now go into science land, and we're going to discuss about a little thing called general relativity. Here's if you're unfamiliar with general relativity, because everybody just knows this stuff. I personally grew up around a nuclear physicist, so I've known how to make nuclear bombs since I was a teenager. But the general theory of general relativity was absolutely ingenious. Albert Einstein is amazing. So before Einstein came about, people just thought that space was like four-dimensional. Like you had like these three-dimensional world. You can go forward y 5. I can go left x of 3. Then I can go z of up 2, and then I can end up at some position. This isn't really how the world actually works. There's this thing called density, and it makes everything different. So it came up this equation. It basically treats the space-time as something that the matter is displacing, and that the energy is equal to essentially like how much it's displacing in the space field. And so this basically creates a system that's a little bit like when you have a penny that's going down. If you put a penny in one of those machines and it like spirals around down in a circle and then it goes down into that machine, or like if you're on a trampoline, if you are sitting on a trampoline and then you are depressing the trampoline, then it's essentially warping space-time. And it's been thought that gravity is a pulling force, but I'm going to argue here that it is a pushing force. And we're going to do it so through some basic observations here. So here, I've got the document camera. This all started from my show Cooking with Kale, in which I make open source cookbooks. And then this is the Kabuki Starship cookbook, which I don't have a lot of work done on. I am mostly a computer engineer, but we're going to start back from the beginning of time here, where there is a big bang. So up here at the top of here, we're going to have a big bang, and then we got stuff dripping out. These are particles. So there's a bunch of different theories of what the universe looks like. But from our perspective, we could just draw it like this. So inside of this thing, we're going to have some stars up inside of it. See that right? All right. And so we're going to have some planets, which I'll draw in. Ooh. And so these things are going to follow an orbit now around the sun. Oops, that's not a good one. And essentially what this thing's going to do is it's going to spiral. So this sun is traveling, it's just some arbitrary location. And then it is going into a black hole. We're going to use black, right? And so when we think of the beginning of time and the end of time, we think of this as like the clock time. I'm going to argue that this is not this is a subjective version of, or it's a subjective perception of how time works. I'm going to argue here that time actually flows in the direction of energy. So it's going to start up here at the top, and there's going to be an arrow that points down into the sun. And then there's going to be another arrow that is going to point, oh yeah, I need to use this. So this thing is going to now go down into the black hole. Now we are going to define this is the beginning of time, and we are going to define the middle of the black hole as the end of time. So now we're also going to make another black hole here. And we're going to follow from this black hole into this black hole. And then we're going to, again, follow into another black hole. So, this is the Earth. It's spinning. So, we are following a sun, and this sun is going to a state where the energy is equal to 0. And so this is E equals mc squared equals 0. You've heard of this equation. This would be the genius Albert Einstein came up with this brilliant stuff without computers. I mean, for real, the power of that. He wasn't the only one, too. The Jewish people of that time were just exceptionally brilliant geniuses. They still are. But Albert Einstein was a special one. So we're going to peer into the black hole by understanding a little bit about how two suns and their gravitational influence on each other are going to affect each other. So we have our black holes. Now we're going to have, let's say that this is Earth. And here's the next star over. It's Alpha Centauri. And then it's going to be going 2 into the black hole. All right, so it had a vector from the beginning of time to the end of time. Okay, so the fundamental observation that we're going to base this theory of thermal relativity on is that the end of time is the end of the thermal cycle, where all of the energy has turned from potential energy into mass. Right? So the genius Albert Einstein, he came up with this idea that particles and energy displace space, and that the space around it can change the speed of light through this E equals mc squared equation. And then this is the more complicated version of it over here. Right. So we got a scenario where here we have pure energy. And so I'm going to say that this is the value of 1 right here. And we're going to say that 1 is less than, E less than or equal to mc squared. Wait, hold on, no. That's the wrong way, sorry. Squeeze theorem, that baby. Yeah, right. So we just have to squish this thing over some sort of constant in order to make this thing work. So here we're at pure energy. At this point in time, the mass is, I don't know exactly how much the mass is, but I don't think it's actually 0. Because there's plenty of reasons to think that the mass is not actually 0 up here. So there's probably everybody's seen the animation of how the so we think of the sun as these planets just like they're on a disk, because we just see this thing as like this is a disk, but this is a false notion. The truth is that the star is going extremely fast. This thing is going way faster than you have any concept of how fast it's going. It seems like we're standing still here, but this is absolutely completely false. We are absolutely not standing still. We are going so unbelievably fast. It would be faster than you could see. You would not be able to actually see us go by. If you were actually standing still, we would be like, it'd be gone. So at this point, we have pure energy. And then at this point in time, E equals mc squared equals 0. And what that means is that the mass, if you're familiar with the calculus notation, this mass goes to infinity. And then this one drops down to 0. Okay, you have to know a little bit more about the physics background here. There's something called the Bose-Einstein condensate. This is, let me bring it up here. So the Bose-Einstein condensate, what they did, I mean, just ingenious. How do you do this? They figured out that they could stop light in a vacuum. Or hold on. what they did was they made it a very dense gas of bosons, and the density got so cool that they were able to get very close to absolute zero, which is where the particles are not moving. So in our drawing here, we have here they are extremely energetic at the Big Bang, which is one place where it's that energetic. And then here the motion is zero. Along this line, the speed of light is as fast as it can possibly be here. And then each place, so here we're at C here. And then at some place, I don't know exactly where it's at. At some place, we're going to get to C over 2 here. And then we're going to be C equals 0 here. Hold on. Yeah, I'm just going to leave this notation like this. So full light speed. And then as we get closer to the sun, then the light speed constant slows down. And then we go into a black hole, and then the light speed constant gets smaller and smaller and smaller as we go into the black hole. So we think that there's something pulling us here. I'm arguing that this is absolutely not true. We are getting pushed because at this point in time, it is pure energy. Energy can displace space. If you have 2 electrons, okay, an incandescent bulb, when you run electricity along an incandescent bulb, the electrons on the bulb will slowly make the bulb filament stretch apart, it'll start looking like cauliflower, and then it'll explode. So energy can displace space, as well mass can displace space. So what we want to do is we want to view these two things as 2 giant test tubes. So first off, let's put a little thing of planets around here, because this thing has planets too. And remember that the ball is going very fast. The sun is going very fast. And so this is going down into here. And so what we want to think of is that the entire thing, that there's this 2 test tubes here. So between this 2 thing, we have what is called a thermal equilibrium. So this is the thermal equilibrium. All right. So the concept that the physics principles that we are utilizing here to make these assumptions are that when you mix a bunch of elements up in a liquid, they will settle with the heaviest elements being on the bottom, right? So we have 2 test tubes. So here's Earth. And then Alpha Centauri. Okay, so this is Earth. Oh, wait, hold on, no. Sorry, Sun. Oops. Okay, so imagine that these things are test tubes. And so here's the sun. Hold on. The sun's at on these test tubes. So the sun's over here. And then the Earth or a planet, a spherical ball, a spherical ball is over here. So, all right, let me fix this document camera so we can see the all right. So in this, let's say there's a bunch of elements in this tube. So they're going to settle here with heavy and then light. All right, so we have the heavy elements at the top, and then they'll settle, and then for instance, let's say there's O2, H2O, He, and then helium. So they're going to settle into these elements. And so at the core is going to be the heaviest elements. So we have a ball composed of a bunch of matter. It's spinning around. So we have the ball. The ball is spinning. And it's going around, spinning. And in the middle of the ball is an atom. It's going to end up with, inside of the ball, I'm just going to call it a mass. And then inside of here, there's a force vector that goes here. So we want to look at between these two stars like it's the periodic table of the elements. Let's go look at that. So here's the periodic table of the elements. And you can see that they all have different atomic weights. And so these elements, we can imagine, because of our knowledge of physics, that if these things are two different test tubes right here, then we have a gradient here of elements that will essentially go down to the heaviest elements. So the heaviest elements always end up going down to the middle because it's just like a centrifuge. So a centrifuge is spinning and then the heavy stuff starts to go to the center. That's the way it works, right? And so when it does that, so there's like, so between two here, we have also too, this value in between here, in between the suns, is the same value here and the same value here. This is pure energy. And it's pure energy because it's space. And so when you go up, everyone agrees, there's no one that disagrees. When you go up, you increase in potential energy. So here is potential energy max right here in the middle at the thermal equilibrium. We can also visualize this as two planets where we're going up and then we go back down. This point also too is a 1 here. And then inside there's a 0. It's not very big. 0. So the key to understanding this is to understand that there's multiple ends of the universe. There's not just one end of the universe. There is also 2 other black holes. So what is causing the gravity? What's the question is, what exactly is causing the force to go into here? Can anybody explain in the comment section below what they think is causing the mass to go this way? Is it the force of gravity that's pulling you from this spot, like a magnet is just pulling you? Now that actually kind of seems a little bit silly if you actually look at it like this. This perspective is a lot more accurate when it comes to the physics of this scenario. It is I'm trying. Gotta fix the autofocus here real quick on the camera because you can't really see it too well. I do have a better camera, but I'm missing a stand for it. And my glasses are fogging up, but fear not. We're doing good. Okay, so here, nice and clear. My glasses were too foggy to notice that it was really blurry. I do so humbly apologize, but hey, I need a stage prop. If you donate to the show, I will buy more mad scientist gear so that I look super cool. All right, so we got some sort of source. We got an end. We have here, we have pure space. We have absolute massive, huge space. And then here we have no space, right? So we're going to have to answer the question here, how exactly do spaceships get cold in outer space? Because we're going to be, we're starting out here, and then we're going to go on a space journey over here, over to Alpha Centauri. And at some point in time, our spaceship's going to get cold over here. And we're in a quote-unquote vacuum. So if anybody knows why the spaceship is getting cold out here in the middle of the vacuum, if you could please comment on issue ticket. Oh, here, let me, I got to grab my something real quick. Sorry, the issue number. Right. Got to take you can comment on this issue on GitHub or on YouTube in the comment section or Periscope. So the spaceship is getting cold because energy is space. So E equals mc squared. All right. And then c squared equals hold on. This is big M. This is little m. And this is meters per second squared, right? No, just meters per second. All right. So E equals mc squared, which equals mass times meters per second. Okay, so there's this and this thing. If you stop thinking about time as whatever we perceive time as, think of this as distance. What we have here is work. In physics, this is work. All right. Replace time with distance, and then you have work. And why do we know that that would be true? Is because when light passes through a prism, Fermat's principle, it goes through the shortest possible path in time. And this translates directly into a distance. That distance, then we can then view it as the amount of work that can be done by the photon when it's, do we have a picture of the, we don't have a picture of a pyramid, do we? Or hold on, what do we call it? Looking for the picture of the light in it. This is what I'm looking for. Right, so we can see this. Sorry, I'm in the wrong one, huh? Oops, I'm just huge right there. So we can see it splitting in the prism into the different constituent light rays. Each one of these light rays has a different energy level. I'm going to try not to get sidetracked on the quantum physics of that. So where are we at with this? So let's go back to over here. So we have gotten to a point now where we have explained energy is equal to mass times a scalar of, so you have to think of this thing. This thing can go, essentially, this thing can be normalized to make it 1. So we could say that C can drop down to 0 inside of here. And then we could say that when it's at 1, it's at full speed. So C is 1, and then it can go down to 0. So then it becomes a scalar at that point in time that you're multiplying the mass. So we have a mass times the speed of light here. Okay, so that's the maximum speed of light here. That's the max. In between these two objects, the speed of light is the fastest that it can possibly be. Why is that true? It is true because this is the slowest that it can possibly go because E equals mc squared. So then we can start looking at this thing as this is the heaviest element. So when it goes into the black hole at the end of time, this forms the where the mass goes to infinity and the speed of light goes to 0. Then we can say this is the heaviest element, and that along here, along this path, we will find every other element that there is along this path. This is called the thermal gradient. This is the theory of thermal gradient that I came up with here on Cooking with Kale. Actually, this isn't Cooking with Kale, but you can find it if you want to see the original videos. I'm not claiming they're all correct. I'm claiming to be a computer engineer who's geeking out with a document camera, but you can find, I also too invented a really, really cool CO2 sequestration machine that you can find instructions on how to build. I haven't built the physical prototype, but it works really, really cool. It's like probably the world's most efficient water heater. It is it's basically an ice machine that can take the heat out of your water, like your bath water, and then it's a biomimicked lung that uses pure H2O to sequester CO2 and carbonic acid, and then you boil it to get it back out. So it's essentially a breathing process. It's like a biomimic lung. So I was trying to do biomimicry. We also have this cool salt log dehumidifier that, we can make like a refrigerator with a salt and a log and a fan and some other cool things. And then you can find down in here in the archives, you can also see the original demonstrations, but I'll warn you, there's probably some stuff that's not right in there. If you make donations to the show, it funds all of this stuff too. So we've got these two test tubes. These two test tubes go down here. And along here, we're going to have elements that don't exist at that place in the test tube. And we're going with the quantum mechanics principle that there's a statistical probability that the elements are going to be in this due to the gravitational forces that are pushing it this way. So what we're saying here is that instead of having gravity pulling from here, from the end of the line, pulling everything here, because that seems kind of silly that at the end we have one point. We have one point that's infinitely dense. How does that one point bring everything else to it? That seems kind of kooky. No, you got to flip it backwards. This is the key, is you got to flip the vector backwards. Once you flip the vector backwards, you can see that that this becomes a thermal gradient from the highest energy potential, which is pure space, to the lowest potential energy. And this is also pure space here. And so what else have we got? So why does time slow down? Now we've gotten to the really cool part. Why does time slow down when you go really fast? Why do satellites have to correct their time when they're moving? And the answer to that is the same reason why the phonons are transferring heat through the vacuum, through the spooky force at a distance. It's the same reason. The reason why is when you're displacing space is energy. Space is it has an amount of work that you can do from the highest energy down to the lowest energy potential. This is E equals mc squared. This is how much work can be done and the maximum speed of light when the mass is at its lowest density. So let us go deeper down into the rabbit hole here into the, we're going to make a model of the Earth. All right, so we have an Earth, and then we have, we're going to pretend that there are only 4 atoms on the surface. It's just a thought experiment that there's only 4 atoms here. Okay, and then so when you go denser and you get more dense, then you go inside and then there's 4. And then when you go in here, then there's many more times. All right, so this thing is spinning. And then it's going after a sun. Then the sun is going into a black hole. Which then goes into another black hole. Each point in time, the matter getting more and more dense. And at temperature of absolute 0 is where the atom is not moving at all. So we have a system where the lighter particles are out here. And so they're going around, going into the hole. And when they move, they're spinning. So these atoms around here are having all kinds of spin. They're spinning. Let's look at one atom. And so we've got the the electron valence bands, and in the atom, and then it's spinning. So what it's done, you got these things are spinning. So we're going down into the atomic level now in our model. They're spinning, and what's happening is that eventually they're you got to think we're going a bazillion and 1 miles an hour. So these things are going really fast, and then eventually towards the black hole here, they're going to eventually start to go slower and slower and slower and slower and slower until they get into the black hole, and then they are going to lose their energy, and then they are going to stand still where E equals mc squared equals 0. So when you're going like this, eventually it stands still, but here there's a lot of motion, and then it starts to go here. So there's a bunch of atoms. These atoms are going around in a field. They're like doing some random zigzag pattern, and then so on one side of the atom, it's less dense. On the other side, it's more dense. Here, there is more room to move. So each of these atoms can move. I don't know exactly how they move. I'm doing a figure 8 because it's an infinity. All right, and so these atoms are moving, but on this side, the atoms can move less. So see, there's more space on this side than there is on this side. It's the geometry of space-time here. We have a sphere, it's spinning, and then it's going into a more dense form as it goes into the center of a black hole. So on one side of the atom, the light speed constant, so C, I'm going to call this C sub 0, is going to be greater than C sub 1. No. I got to flip those backwards. Sorry. We're going to stick C sub 1 over here. So C sub 1 on the outside here of this atom. No, hold on. We're going to call it C sub 2. Hold on, 0. Right? Yeah. So C sub 1 is less than C sub 0. This place, it has more stuff, room to move out. Space is energy. This side, it's getting more dense. And then it goes into a black hole. And that is the law, or hold on, it's not a law. That's the theory of thermal relativity, which I feel like that's a pretty good explanation of black hole physics. I've also, too, there is a starship based on this principle called a Kabuki Starship. And you'll hear more about that in future shows. But let's get on to taking off the science goggles now, going back into news mode. Oh, I think I have some articles lined up. Oh, yeah. We are going right into business with the naked people because everybody wants to see naked chicks, right? Even women. In this next article from the Daily Mail. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to chop them up into clips. In this next article from the Daily Mail, Extinction Rebellion activists hold nude protest to expose naked truth about climate change. Protesters stripped on King's Lawn on Sunday to protest Cambridge University investing $400 million in their economy because they have a pandemic that just went in like, why have people like took their economy out? So you need to invest money? I don't know whether or not these people at this university have ever actually ran a business, but I'm going to actually go out and make the assumption based upon the age group of these people and on the statistical likelihood that these people actually ran a business. And I'm going to say that these people probably have no clue on how to actually run a business, though that is just my own personal theory. So, why is this fake? I am an environmentalist myself, just to be clear. I believe global warming is absolutely happening and that it is man-made. But most of the scientists are saying that this is not legit. Here is an article from The Atlantic. This is from June 13th of 2017 by a guy named Peter Brannan, Brannen. It says, Earth is not in the midst of a sixth mass extinction. As scientists, we have a responsibility to be accurate about such comparisons. At the annual meeting of the Geological Society in America, the Smithsonian paleontologist Doug Irwin took a podium to address a ballroom full of geologists on the dynamics of mass extinction and power grid failures, which he claimed unfold the same way. Quote, there are images from the NOAA website of the U.S. blackout of 2003, he said, pulling up a nighttime satellite picture of the glowing northeast metropolis megawatt under a fire of cold dark of space. This is a 20 hours before the blackout. You can see Long Island and New York. And this is 7 hours into the blackout, he said, pulling up a new map cloaked in darkness. New York is almost dark. The blackout extended all the way up to Toronto and all the way out to Michigan and Ohio. It covered a huge section of both Canada and the United States. It was largely due to a software bug in the control room in Ohio. Irwin's one of the world's experts on end Permian mass extinction and an unthinkable volcanic nightmare that's nearly ended life on Earth 252 million years ago. He proposed that Earth's great mass extinction might unfold like these power grid failures. Most of the losses may come not from initial shock, software glitches in the case of power grid failures, and asteroids and volcanoes in the case of ancient mass extinctions, but from the secondary cascade of failures that follow. These are devastating chain reactions that no one understands. Irwin thinks the most mass extinctions in Earth history, global die-offs that killed a majority of life on Earth, ultimately resulted not from external shocks, from internal dynamics of food webs that faltered and failed catastrophically in unexpected ways, just as the darkening eastern seaboard did in 2003. Quote, because it's not clear how to manage the collapse, although after the fact it was clear that it should be easily contained, it cascaded into failure of grids across the northeastern United States. I mention this because it turns out that from a mathematical point of view, the problem of understanding these food webs is exactly the same problem that understanding the nature of the grid. There is a rapid collapse of the ecosystem during these mass extinctions. I had written to Irwin to get his take on the contemporary idea that there's currently a sixth mass extinction on the way on our planet, and then on par with the so-called big five mass extinctions in the history of animal life. Many popular science articles take that this is a given. And indeed, there's something emotionally satisfying about the idea that humans' hubris and short-sightedness are so profound that we bring a world. This one's long. What do we got here? Typical Atlantic. They're very good journalists. I do enjoy reading their articles, but yeah, this one was I would definitely classify it as a little bit wordier than I wanted. Sorry, I'm trying to find my place again. I'd written it. Given how severely humans have damaged the natural world over millennia, it was a An idea I found attractive. It's one even shared by many geologists and paleontologists. Our destruction is so familiar, so synonymous with civilization, in fact, that we tend to overlook how strange the world that we've made has become. For instance, it stands to reason that until recently, all vertebrate life on the planet was wildlife. But astoundingly, today, wildlife accounts for only 3% of the Earth's land animals. Human beings, our livestock, and pets take up about the remaining 97% of the biomass. So that's extremely strong argument to say. I was like, okay, well, you're going to say there's a mass extinction here. 97% of the biomass is like, we're in control of that. So, you can't really say there's a mass extinction, especially, okay, so they didn't really go into this point, but one excellent point that just completely debunks the entire thing is that animals evolve over a long period of time. So, for instance, sharks. See, I do have something about sharks up here. Let's go look for the sharks. If you look at some of the oldest species in the world, sharks being one of them, they've been around for a very long time. Like there's some species of sharks that they were not fit for evolution. They were replaced by other species. Not all of them died off. They actually evolved into other species. This is a misconception that people have, that climate change is actually causing the actual animals to die. This does happen to some of the animals. They actually do die, but it causes them to evolve. So they don't have a genetic advantage over the other animals anymore. So other animals are able to breed faster, and they are able to kill faster. So these are the animals that you want. You also have to look at the time scale that all of this stuff is going on in. The time scale is incredibly long. So we've been sold on this lie that we know the planet is going to be warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius, or that 1.5 degrees Celsius is going to be a tipping point. But this isn't reality. It's just fear. It's the same thing that's happening with COVID. So currently, right now, there's all kinds of really bad COVID misinformation from health professionals who they think they know everything. Because they studied it in college, and they think that they're an epidemiologist just because they took some classes. But in reality, just because you took a class does not mean that you're an expert in this subject. You have to actually practice in the field. And if you don't practice regularly, you will lose your skills. You won't be up on the latest information, and then you won't be relevant anymore. So a lot of people who are putting out, causing these shutdowns, like making us wear masks, they're doing it off of junk data, where they're making assumptions. They're like, oh, well, if I look in the mask and I cough into the mask and it sprays out, we can see that this much percent of particles did not spray out, so therefore we all should wear masks. Right. Okay. So I should try to prevent myself from getting COVID, because about half the people who die from COVID are over the average age of death. And then a third of them have pre-existing conditions like diabetes or cancer. And I'm 38 right now. Oh, and I have being under 38, you have 1/38 of the chance of dying from COVID. So if you're under 45, or if you're not under the average age of death and you don't have a pre-existing condition, your chance of dying from COVID is very low. And it's going to decrease the chance that you're going to die from a second wave if you get COVID now, because there's 6 strands of COVID, 6 of them. One of them is very deadly. The other are not deadly. So if you're young, you want to get the 5 strands that are not deadly before you get the strand that's deadly. And then it's going to mutate into one that's even more deadly, like H1N1, mutated from the influenza. And then that one, if you get the other 5 strands of COVID, you're going to be less likely to die from the other strand of COVID. So this is obvious when you say it like this. There's definitely no fishy science in there. That's just kind of the way your immune system works. Kind of, it is. But the people pushing these mask bans, they don't know. They're making it off of junk science. And it's the exact same thing that's been going on with the global warming. They're saying, I can't read all of this article, but so the reasons why this mass extinction idea is just absolutely completely bunk is it's happening over such a long period of time that we can physically go and transport the different plants and animals that we want to save and move them to the climate that is being moved, because it's happening over such a small period of time that it wouldn't cost very much money to actually transport the thing. So animals, I don't know if you know this or not, but they walk. They like are in the woods and they go walk around. So the climate, when it changes, they migrate. They like go to the hot place or they go to the cold place, or they don't care. Right? So what happens if the climate is changing at such a slow pace that you can walk and you are able to walk? Well, the animals are going to follow the food source to another region. The problem is that the plants that are required to sustain that wildlife, they might not be there. And so this might cause disruptions, but we have supercomputers and garden tools and armies full of people. And I'm pretty sure that I can go out into the woods and find some of the plants and transplant them. And I can, you don't even have to transport the animals. They will transport themselves. You don't have to deal with the birds. The insects will just migrate over. All they need is just the plants over there growing, and then their food sources will grow. And eventually they're going to evolve. And if they can't evolve, then they need to die off because they're unfit to inhabit this earth. That sounds kind of cold. They're beautiful animals, but it's been happening since the dawn of life. What do you want me to do? You want me to just shut down the planet? Shut down evolution? Like, nah, man, that's not fair, dude. It's not fair, dude. These animals, they deserve to have us protect them because they're weak. They need a protector. All right. So let's look at what some people are saying. What are the lefties saying? Here's an example, a fake news article from The Guardian, from a European news source, which people in America are foolish enough to take them as a primary source for events going on and political knowledge of America. And obviously, you should not be using a British newspaper for the primary information that you get about American politics because, well, that is insane. And so here we can see this guy's response to Michael Moore's new film. Well, I guess it's not his newest one, but what was the movie? Planet of the Humans. And George Monbiot said, denial never... Well, hold on. The article is called, How Did Michael Moore Become a Hero to Climate Deniers and the Far Right? Denial never dies. It just goes quiet and waits. Today, after years of irrelevant, the climate science deniers are triumphant. Long after their last desperate claim had collapsed, when they had traction only on alt-right conspiracy sites, a hero of Trump turns up and gives them more than they could have ever dreamed of. Planet of the Humans, whose executive producer and chief promoter is Michael Moore, now has more than 6 million views on YouTube. The film does not deny climate science, but it promotes discredited myths that deniers have used for years to justify their position. It claims that environmentalism is a self-seeking scam, doing intense harm to the living world while enriching groups of con artists. This has long been the most effective means by which denial, most of which has been funded by the fossil fuel industry, has been spread. Everyone hates a scammer. And yes, there are scammers. There are real issues, real conflicts to be explored in seeking to prevent the collapse of our life support system. But they are handled so clumsy and incoherently by this film that watching it is like seeing someone start a drunken brawl that spilled over a spilled pint, then lamping his friends when they try to restrain him. It stumbles so blindly into toxic issues that Moore, former champion of the underdog, underwittingly aligns himself to the white supremacist and extreme right. You're like, what? You don't believe the science? How could you not believe the science? You're going to get people killed by not believing the science! This goes to show you exactly why the left is so absolutely apeshit crazy right now. They think because they took some classes in college and they like to think of themselves as a nerd, that this then makes them an expert in everything. And so they then dogmatically believe absolutely anything scientists will say. 86% of scientists in America are vote for Democrats. So they have an extreme political bias. They look at the data through a political lens, and then they make assumptions based off of fear. They say, if we don't take immediate action, people are going to die. And so we have to shut down the economy, and we have to turn the machines off, and this is how we're going to save the planet. Because that's about how far they thought into it. Reading on in the article, occasionally the film lands a punch on the right nose. It's a right to attack the burning of trees to make electricity, but when the film's presenter and director Jeff Gibbs claims, "I found only one environmental leader willing to reject biomass and biofuels," he can't have been looking very far. Some people have been speaking out against them ever since they became a serious position. Almost every environmental leader I know oppresses the burning of fresh materials to generate power. There's also some genuine and difficult problems with renewable energies, particularly in the mining of necessary materials. But the film's attack on solar and wind rely on a series of blatant falsehoods. It claims that in producing electricity from renewables, you use more fossil fuels to do this than you're getting benefit from it. You would have been just better off burning fossil fuels in the first place. This is flat wrong. On average, a solar panel generates 26 units of solar energy for every fossil energy required to build it and install it. Wind turbine ratio is 44. And so they link to something on nature.com that's got some thing. And so they basically take any sort of scientific information and they know very little about it. And then they make assumptions that they know everything about it because they have trust in the people who wrote it. And their trust is often misguided. I have not read this article, but what I can tell you, because I am a computer engineer and I did invent the Oregon cooler, and so I have done quite a bit of work in learning green tech. I engineered the Oregon cooler based upon this graph here. This is a graph from the EPA.gov of the household emissions in your house. Just do the chart. And so you can see this is the greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see this pie is a difficult pie to try to adjust. Try to shave some digits off of this pie. Or wait, you can't see that. Try to shave some digits off of there. How are you going to actually go off doing it? Agriculture, this is where they're saying that we could save the world by making cows wear bags to sequester their farts because they have methane in them. And that if we just stop eating meat, that somehow this is going to get smaller. The reality of the situation is that's complete nonsense. The real problem with meat is with the fertilizers that we use to get the food to feed the animals. The fertilizer is coming from, I think is it basalt rock? No, it's some sort of, I can't remember what the fertilizer they use, but it all comes off of this rock. Maybe it's basalt rock. I can't remember. If you could please comment on issue 81 for this show. That would be great to remind me of what that was. Let's go back in here. So, on average, he's saying solar power generates 26 units of solar electricity for every fossil energy required to build and install it. And so, yeah, sure, during the day when the solar panel's at peak efficiency, yeah, that might work. But I'm in Oregon where it's cloudy, and so where's the sun coming from that we're going to power this thing from? Does anybody want to inform me as to where the sun is going to power my house in Oregon? This is why I designed the Oregon cooler with the ice machine. I basically ran its runoff solar panels, and then it recycles your hot water with an ice machine, and basically uses solar water preheaters in your window to suck the heat out of your waste heat out of your window. So my machine can take some slices off of this pie. This thing, like my machine can actually take some digits off of that pie. But from what I've looked into this, there's a storage issue. So first off, yeah, like there's no wind around here in Oregon. The sun's pretty sporadic, and then we have to store it. So where are we going to store this? We're going to use lithium ion batteries, and then where are we going to get the lithium from? I think this person brought up, does this say anything about lithium? Yeah. This article talks about the lithium supplies. The author of the article did not mention lithium. He doesn't mention anything about lithium. So he obviously doesn't know that lithium ion batteries aren't going to be a good solution for us here. It's nice to experiment with that technology to make a better car, electric car, but that one's not going to work. We might have a new sodium battery out, but there is a big energy storage problem here. Like you can generate this power, but you can only generate it at certain times of the day. I live in Eugene, Oregon. We have most of our, 92% of our electricity comes from the Willamette River. So we're on hydro here. So it's not going to be a huge savings for us to go all green. But we would like to do all green energy, of course. But one big way that you can actually make a dent on this, because this guy doesn't really actually know what he's talking about. Instead of actually giving you a solution, this guy's just saying, I know more than all the scientists because I don't believe this guy's facts. And then he's spewing out a bunch of facts that he doesn't know about. He's He doesn't even know what the problem with lithium is. Like, he doesn't even know charge densities, amount that you could store, which is the amount of energy that you could store in space, in the battery. But he will pretend up and down that I am being anti-science when I don't believe him, when indeed my answers are actually based on science and his are not. But the best thing that you can personally do to help reduce air pollution is to focus on air pollution instead of global warming, because global warming is a long-term goal. We don't know exactly the solution to the global warming, but we do know that if we do the wrong thing or we shut everything down, we can cause our economy to spiral out of control, in which case dictators will prop up, and then we won't have any sort of control over whether or not, or over the emissions. If we have a dictator, such as in Nazi China, which I call them, they are a Nazi structure. Do not think they're communists. They allow private property ownership. That's 100% National Socialism. There's also another bunch of other reasons I'm not going to go into. But you can take, if you want to get onto solar power, the best thing that you can do specifically is to replace your 2-cycle lawnmower and weed eater with a solar powered electric, well, of course, solar powered weed eater and lawnmower. You can get these batteries. They're actually fairly big. I mean, this is like a 40-volt Ryobi battery. And this, I've got a chainsaw from them. I got a weed eater. I've got a lawnmower. And the two-cycle gas motors, they aren't filtered very well. They don't burn the fuel all the way, and they release a lot of smog. And it actually causes a lot of asthma because it's they don't burn all the fuel in it. And so when you're in a city and there's lots of people who are mowing their lawn, then this actually causes a lot of deaths in your city from asthma. So if you can replace your 2-cycle engine with a solar-powered weed eater, lawnmower, and chainsaw, then you're going to be doing a lot of help for the planet and for the community, because it is the problem is that we need to be able to store the energy. So mowing your lawn is the best way that you could possibly store that energy. It's the highest pollution reduction for the dollar and lithium battery that we can get. Reading on the article, Planet of the Humans also claims that you can reduce fossil fuel use through renewable energy. Coal is instead being replaced by gas. Well, in the third quarter of 2019, renewables in the UK generated more electricity than coal, oil, and gas plants put together, but they didn't store it. They were like, that doesn't mean you could generate infinite energy, but if you can't store it, it just doesn't do you any sort of good. As a result of the switch to renewables in the country, the amount of fossil fuel used for the power generation has halved since 2010. By 2025, the government forecast roughly half of our electricity will come from renewables, while gas burning will drop by a further 40%. To hammer home this point, the film shows footage of a large terminal to import natural gas from the United States that Germany just built. Germany has no such terminal. The footage was shot in Turkey. There's also a real story to be told about the co-option and capture of some environmental groups by the industries they should hold account. A remarkable number of large conservation organizations take money from fossil fuel companies. This is a disgrace, but rather than pinning blame on where it lies, Planet of the Humans contradicts its attack that Bill McKibben is co-founder of 350.org, takes no money from his campaigning work, also has almost comic exercise of misdirection, but unfortunately has horrible real world consequences. I'm going to say this guy's kind of blabbing. Like, this is a blab. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. Like, it doesn't really. Oh yeah, he's discrediting their movie. I guess it's not discrediting them. I don't see that as a discredit. Yes, population growth does contribute to the pressure on the natural world, but while global population is rising 1% a year, consumption under the pandemic was rising at steady 3%. High consumption is concentrated in countries where population growth is low. Where population growth is highest, consumption tends to be extremely low. Although population in numbers of poor countries, largely inhabited by black and brown people, when wealthy people such as Moore and Gibbs point this issue out, the necessary caveats, they're saying it, in effect, it's not us consuming, it's them breeding. It's not hard to see why far right loves this film. That's really fucking irritating, man. This dude is stupid. And it's not just him. Like, Europeans are insane, dude. The European liberals are straight up some of the most scummy, horrible people that I have had to come across. They are hardcore cancel culture. If they think what you're saying is hate speech, they will turn on you. They will ostracize you. They will get you fired from your job. They will ruin your business. And here's a chart from the UN. Shows you the projected population in billions per continent. And you can see that Africa is, their population has been skyrocketing. Okay, since the pandemic, that has slowed down. These numbers were from pre-pandemic levels. When in Africa, some of these countries have birth rates of 5 or 6 people per woman. To put that into perspective, you need to have 2.1 kids to maintain your population. And Americans, on average, have a birth rate of 1.6 child per woman. This means that our population is shrinking, and the Democrats basically just want to. Here's a chart of the birth rates of Americans. You can see that's dipping. Here the rate is, we're putting 0.5 here. So this is a 0.5 dip. They put it in the same rate of the, they always scale these things in where it's in the same ratio of the birth rate. So you can see it's going down about 0.5. So if we were 1.6, then it goes down to only child. So the Democrats, because they're absolutely insanely corrupt, this is a chart from the U.S. Census Bureau. It shows U.S. population 1900 to 2016. Population projections 2017 to 2016 by immigration scenario. You can see with zero immigration, our population will decrease. With low immigration scenario, in 2060, our population will be 376 million.2. High immigration is 446.9 million. That's about a 70 million population difference, which is massive. 70 million people is huge. Democrats, they want that. Republicans want that. So these little shit suckers from the EU, the ones that will cancel you because they think that you engaged in hate speech. So they don't want to believe this shit. You don't want to believe it because they bring up facts. They think that facts are racist. And it's because this is when you ban hate speech, it starts out with a good intention of trying to protect some person because they're hella beta and they need a white savior. But the end result of what you get is people will exploit the system. They will target their political enemies. And it's not going to be, at that point in time, about trying to help minorities or people that are too beta. Then you, at that point in time, it just becomes a weapon to be used to control the political argument. And this is what they're doing. In Europe, these little shit-sucking liberals in Europe have caused all of these riots going on in America. You can blame on these shit-sucking liberals in Europe. They, in fact, are absolutely nightmarishly horrible liberals. Nazism came from Europe, and it's the same. People think that Nazis weren't liberals. That's absolutely insane. Most Nazis were communists, dude. They were anti-capitalist. Germans never owned slaves. They were anti-racist back then. So they weren't like white supremacists, like people say. That's not actually true. Germans were never white supremacists. But this is another example of they see everything through a political lens. Reading on, it says population is where you go when you haven't thought your argument through. Population is where you go when you don't have the guts to face the structural systemic causes of our predicament: inequality, oligarch, power, capitalism. Population is where you go when you want to kick down. And so I just want to push back against this little leftist shit sucker from Europe. Absolutely in no way, shape, or form is this happening from inequality. Not at all. Any way, shape, or form. No. This is blaringly happening because of a breeding battle in Africa. Absolutely. This guy they all refuse to accept the reality of the situation in Europe because they're brainwashed leftists. They're fucking crazy, man. They don't want to look at this and say, no, the Africans need to stop. They want to say, it's the white man's fault. No, it's my fault. It's my fault that the people where is the graph? That the people up here, that they are having 5 or 6 children per woman. No, that's not inequality at all. No way, shape, or form is that inequality. That's brainwashed liberal propaganda regurgitated because they have anti-hate speech laws and you can't actually say the truth because facts are racist to these people. The reality of the situation is that the people in these countries, they view having a large family as a sign of strength because you have more people to back you up. You have more labor. But there's a problem when you have a large amount of people with large families, is that you have an oversupply of the labor, and then it is no longer worth as much. So where this guy wants to say it's inequality, he's just stupid. He's brainwashed. He looks at everything through a political lens. And I'm going to read his last sentence here. We've been here many times before. Dozens of films have spread falsehoods about the environmentalist activities and ripped into green technologies while letting fossil fuels off the hook. But never before did these attacks come from the infamous campaigner for social justice, rubbing dirt in the faces. So this guy's just a buffoon. He doesn't know anything about electricity. I'm a computer engineer. I'm not technically I'm a green tech engineer because I do make the organ cooler, but I don't work in solar or wind. I know enough about that industry to know I don't know enough about that industry. But what I do know about that industry is that there's a lot of lost power inefficiencies that people don't know about because they're not engineers. You think, okay, well, we got all this electricity, so we just have however much the solar panel said, right? Had, what was it? 26 units of solar electricity per fossil energy required to build and install it, right? Right. No, that's actually not how it works at all. There's a ton of inefficiencies in the system. There's a bazillion of them. And when you add them all up, you're not going to save the planet by driving an electric car. In fact, the only thing about driving the electric car that would possibly save the planet is the technology that we developed while making the car. If you want to cut that off before we find the cures to global warming, then we could shut everything down. We can just do whatever these wing nuts over here want us to do. Right? Yes, she's got some nice tits. So I'm just going to leave her tits up here for just a little while longer, let you stare at her tits. But the reality of the situation is that there's just no mass species. There's no climate change. Hold on. No, there's climate change. There's no mass extinction from climate change going on. There's no evidence that this is going to happen in the future. It's just speculation based upon people thinking that they are seeing numbers of one group of animals go down, but the reality is that there's also other groups of animals that evolve from this, and we're not going to be at risk of losing our biodiversity. It's just not going to happen. If that happens, there's going to be a mass evolution that's going to cause the animals to rapidly evolve, and it's going to do the opposite of whatever they're saying. This next article from Business Insider, this Minnesota politician has more than 140,000 TikTok followers and is embracing the app as Trump seeks to ban it from the U.S. Minnesota Senator Matt Little has built a massive audience on TikTok, over 140,000 followers. And even as more politicians grow weary of it, Trump and other high-profile names on both sides of the aisle say the app's ownership by Chinese tech giant ByteDance raises national security and data privacy concerns. But Little told Politico magazine that TikTok has been singled out because it's the younger generation's tool for politics. So obviously this guy's a dipshit. He's an idiot. He only cares about his network. He only cares that he came up on this network and that he has a following. And he thinks that that China should be allowed to control our politics. He suggests that many politicians actually avoid TikTok because it values authenticity, and said that those who can't be themselves on the platform are going to get roasted. Obviously, this guy's a brainwashed buffoon, and he spends way too much time in social media. If you're unaware of how bad TikTok is a Chinese spy tool. Every business that does business in Nazi China is required to turn over all of their information to the Chinese Nazi Party. They are called the Chinese Nazi Party because they have hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese out in the countryside that they use for this bizarre, freaky baby factory. They can't share with everybody equally because they don't have enough resources. So they send the kids after they turn 18 to the city to make money to send back to the farm. And they have millions of Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. They have filthy, stinking rich Asians who own private property. They own businesses in the United States and elsewhere around the world. If the Chinese Nazi Party wants to seize these assets, they can do at any point in time, which is the textbook definition of National Socialism. But they also have a authoritarian dictator who looks just like Winnie the Pooh. His name is Zinni the Pooh, or Xi Jinping, as some people like to call him. But and then they're trying to be the world's #1 superpower. all of the above, turn them into a National Socialist hierarchy. That is one. People think that the far right is completely divorced from the far left. This is insane. This has never been historically true in any way, shape, or form. Nazis were over 50% of them were communist. They hated capitalism, remember? The whole hate anti-capitalism thing. Antifa started as an anti-capitalist group. Both the Nazis and the communists, they both had a mutual enemy, the Socialist Democratic Party of Germany. And so Nazism was a competing alternative form of socialism that was supposed to compete with communism. And so the difference was that you could own private property. That's the difference. And that they competed for the top rank. So there was a steep hierarchy. And so China is 100% National Socialist in every way, shape, or form because they allow private property ownership and they have a fierce competition to the top. It's absolutely steep hierarchy. They have hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese out in the countryside that they use for a baby factory. I mean, come on, a baby factory? That is insane. That's another level insane. So this guy thinks, oh yeah, they're just using it because it's the younger generation's tool for politics. So why is it the younger generation's tool for politics then? Anybody else think about why that would be true? Well, that would probably be true because the Chinese Nazi Party was in control of what posts were brought to the top of TikTok, and they used it to get an audience of people who are under the age of 18. And in the United States, we have this thing called COPPA. And in this next article from Business Insider, TikTok reportedly has 18 million users who are 14 years or younger, renewing concerns for children's safety. The viral app TikTok is a particular popular app among teens and minors. Internal company data from July shows TikTok classified 18 million users, more than 1/3 of its daily user base in the US as being 14 years or younger. The New York Times reports employees regularly notice videos from children who appeared to be younger than 13. Children's privacy laws in the US prohibit apps like TikTok from collecting personal information from children under the age of 13 without parental consent. TikTok paid $5.7 million fine to settle such allegations in 2019 and is once again under federal investigation for failing to change its policies regarding young users. The Times report raised concerns about whether TikTok does enough to protect the privacy of its youngest users, especially the company faces off against the Trump administration threatening to ban the app. So, were these both on the same one? Yeah, they were both Business Insider. So we could see, I think that they put this up here because it's kind of ridiculous. Obviously, this is ridiculous. The idea that it's more important for this politician, one politician, to be able to keep the network that he grew on, the new network. This is just absolutely insanely selfish. And it's just not democratic. Because what happened, the reason why people are able to grow on new social networks is because there's not a lot of other names that have made their way up to the top and are able to maintain a position at the top ratings. For instance, Twitch, whenever Twitch started to grow, it was because people were able to grow. This is how you were able to attract people to the platform, is you can give them an opportunity to grow. So, So if another platform gets popular because TikTok goes down, it's going to cause another network of people to grow up in popularity. And this group of people will, this will actually trigger more democracy, because this gentleman, he already got a following. He already rose up in the ranks. He already got his way into politics as a Minnesota state senator. So he could, if he is good, he could definitely grow on a newer platform. He probably has already grown quite a bit. But this guy he doesn't care at all that we've got a company that gives all of their information to the Chinese Nazi Party. This TikTok app can access your contact list, your all your pictures on your phone. I'm not sure if it can access your browser history, but it can access the files on it. So probably can't access the private browser history. It can access your location, near field NFC, near field contact, or near field communication. Yeah. So this is like a crazy powerful spy tool. This isn't like a normal spy tool that spies would have where they have to implant it. This is one where you're voluntarily giving them all of your information. The best case scenario for any sort of spy. Chinese Nazi Party has historically been, they have historically, what have they done? They've historically engaged in intellectual property theft in America. They have, in fact, I was even just talking to someone who helped design some of the first Intel chips and like chips for nuclear weapons. And he was talking about how the Chinese were spying on them. I'm trying to get him to come out on the show. You know who you are. Definitely excited to talk about that more in person. But this guy just doesn't care about our national security. He doesn't care that your children are being spied on from China. All he cares about is winning. And obviously this guy is a Democrat. I looked it up. He is a Democrat. And the Democratic Party is like that. They're extremely corrupt. I would highly recommend that you walk away from the Democratic Party. Your life will be a lot better. We won't have to deal with all these rioting and black looter mobs and Antifa communist groups. This next article from Ars Technica, Apple threatens to boot Epic, including Unreal Engine, off of Mac and iOS. The new legal battle between game developer Epic and iPhone maker Apple continues to heat up as Epic says Apple will be cutting it off from the developer platform for Mac. That's irritating as shit. Really? What? That is antitrust. That is every single spitting definition of antitrust. Absolutely 100% antitrust. Okay, let me explain to you how the antitrust law works. The antitrust law is not there to protect businesses. The antitrust laws are there to protect the end consumer. For instance, Nelson Rockefeller, the owner of Rockefeller Oil, when he was first the first person to go through the antitrust hearings, they said that because he controlled the market, that the customers were going to pay a higher price. So Apple is, if you're unfamiliar with the background story of this, we covered this yesterday on Real Simple News with Coffee. If you want to check out more detailed version of this story. No, it wasn't Real Simple News with Coffee. It was Real Simple News with Cale McCullough. I remember because he was on the thumbnail. He was on the green screen thumbnail. Epic Games was trying to circumvent the 30% App Store fee. They didn't, so they put a enter your credit card information into the app, and then iOS banned Epic Games from the App Store, and Google also did the exact same thing. And it's worth mentioning that Apple Music in the Google Play Store also too asks you for your credit card information in the store so that they can avoid the 30% app fee. So this is antitrust because Apple is causing you to pay more money. That Apple, for one reason and one reason only, to control the market and make more money. To control the market so they can make more money. They want you to pay a 30% app store fee, and they don't want Epic Games to compete with them. So there's a difference in between antitrust and anti-competitive behavior. An example of anti-competitive behavior is that I make MIDI controllers and LED lighting controllers. These products are, they're not high margin. They make very low margin off of them. You have to have a lot of customers to make money. And the companies that are there, it's like a cutthroat market. You got to be able to compete with Behringer. Behringer is the eternal nemesis, but Behringer is the best example of anti-competitive versus antitrust. Behringer can underbid just about anybody in the music technology industry. They are my number one nemesis for that particular startup company. And if they want to put me under, whenever, because I didn't take my products to market because I know this. I know that Behringer was just going to tap me out. So I've been trying to avoid Behringer. So I'm probably going with the HDMI route, the video route, because they're not ubiquitous in that industry. But this is the key. Behringer is not ubiquitous all around, but they are able to, if I go into the market, when I want to enter and sell my MIDI controller, the Symmetry Live, which is like a MIDI controller with a touchscreen and a sound card and a USB hub on it, and then I'm putting on an HDMI input on it too. Behringer they can drop the price on their units and underbid me. Hence the reason why I have to put an HDMI input on the unit. And if I don't do that, then Behringer can tap me out. But there's so many different HDMI inputs that are cheap on the Amazon that Behringer would not enter this market because it's not worth it for them. This is anti-competitive behavior, but it's not antitrust. The reason for that is that Behringer is not ubiquitous in the market. Behringer does not affect the wages of a standard person in your city. Does not affect the price of gas, of milk, of eggs, so and so. This, however, is not the case for Amazon versus Walmart. So for instance, Amazon is entering into the antitrust arena because they have grown so large. Now they have in their app store, the Supreme Court, or a California District Appeals Court ruled that Amazon is liable for damages caused by third-party products sold on their website. Somebody's battery exploded and burnt them really bad, and she sued Amazon and got money. So Amazon is engaging in antitrust because they're suppressing the wages of all workers at Target, at Walmart, and all other competing businesses. It's not just anti-competitive where Amazon is just dropping the price and then you get money out of it. So this is the key in the Rockefeller Standard Oil case. Rockefeller lost because they said the customer is going to pay more money for oil because Rockefeller controls Standard Oil. With Amazon, Amazon is engaging in antitrust because they've grown so large that they've become a ubiquitous market presence, and you are forced to deal with them, and they have the ability to depress wages throughout the United States, because Walmart has, on average, about 2 Walmarts per every county in the United States. And so they employ, what was like some number of millions of people, like an insane number of people, crazy large number of people. So when you are engaging in anti-competitive practices against Walmart, you're causing a massive amount of harm to the United States of America. So this is where it goes from anti-competitive to antitrust. Apple is engaging in this exact same thing here with Epic Games. It's like these people know that the gig is up. I think they know the gig is up, and they're just basically fighting for whatever, the best position that they can be in at the end. So Epic, they're saying Epic Games can't be on Mac at all? Can't be on them, not at all. Epic wrote in a court filing that Apple said its membership in developer program will be terminated as of August 28th. According to Epic, Apple's move threatens not only Fortnite, but also every game that uses Unreal Engine. By August 28th, Apple will cut off Epic's access to all development tools necessary to create software for Apple platform, including the Unreal Engine. Epic offers two third-party developers, which Apple has never claimed violated any Apple policy. Epic said, if your membership is terminated, you will no longer be able to submit apps to the App Store, and your apps will still be available for distribution, will be removed, the letter said. So definitely, you don't have any other options for an app store on Apple. There's no, they have you locked in through anti-competitive actions that cause the customer to pay more and get less. And these are the keys to an antitrust lawsuit, that the customer has to pay, in the end up being paying more and getting less. Once you can do, and you have to have the ubiquitous market presence that you have to deal with them. Once you've met these barriers, then it's antitrust, and Apple's going down. I'm looking forward to it. I have been rooting for Apple going down for forever. I think that organization sucks. I think they're horrible. They treat their customers like dirt. They have some for real fanboys out there who purchase their products all the time, and they just take advantage of these people. They'll sell them garbage. They'll sell them stuff that they know they got to upgrade later because they know they have to upgrade it later. They'll give you something subpar because they have an ecosystem, and you have to get everything like from them in order to make it all work right. That's their ploy with Mac. And then in the end, it doesn't even really work right. I've been using these platforms I'm 38. I've been using it since I was a teenager. And it's always been horrible. It's always been bad. Windows is better. Windows 10 is light years better than OS X. Android is light years better than iOS. So you're paying more and you're getting less. So you should get with a bunch of people and do a class action lawsuit against Apple to get the money back from when you have been ripped off from Apple. This next article from Ars Technica, study confirms that painting eyes on cow butts helps ward off predators. Cattle herds in the Ovinongo Delta region in Botswana are plagued by attacks that plagued by attacks by lion and other predators, prompting farmers to retaliate by killing the predators. An alternative non-lethal technique involves painting eyes on the butts of cattle and to trick the ambush predators like lions into thinking spotted their intended prey. Oh, that they think that they've been spotted by their intended prey. It's called iCow, the iCow Project, a recent paper published by the journal Communication Biology, provides some solid empirical evidence for the practice. There are now some practical guides for using the iCow technique available in both English and Setswana, so farmers can try it out for themselves. And if you remembered the thumbnail, here you can see the cow. And as you can see that when you look at the cows, inside of the context of the cows, you can clearly see that it's a cow. But when you take it out of the context, it actually looks like some weird, bizarre mouth. It does look like a freakish animal. It kind of looks like an elephant, like a snuffleupagus or something. Oops. This next article from Hacker News, having an alter ego can reduce anxiety and benefit confidence, research shows. This is coming at you from the BBC. It says, thinking of yourself as a separate entity can reduce anxiety while kicking up some major benefits for your confidence and determination. How do the world's top stars muster the poise and determination to stand on stage despite the nerve and anxiety of having bad performance? For both Beyonce and Adele, the secret has been creating an alter ego. In fact, I actually messed up the intro to this video, and I have an alter ego. It is Captain Kabuki, the shit-talking, foul-mouth engineer who builds green tech and AI and so I like to do everything live because I'm a trumpet player and I'm just used to doing jazz improv. And so I've always just avoided, when I was in audio engineering school, I avoided post-production like the plague. I don't know. It was just something I just can't, I hate it. So when I went up, it was like I messed up the intro. I had this thing I was going to be like, Real Simple News with science. And then I completely fucked it up, So a lot of people would have just been like, got to shut it down. But like, that's not my ego. That's not my MO. That's not the way that I operate. The way that I operate is I'm going to do a live show. And then if I try to redo it and make it perfect, then I'm going to have half the amount of shows. Instead of doing one perfect show, I would rather do two shows that are not as good. And so this really helps with my nerves. So if I think when I'm going on, I have to make it perfect, and if I don't make it perfect, then everybody's going to think I suck, and they're not going to like and subscribe. You should like and subscribe. Actually, go to YouTube, look up Real Simple News on YouTube, and subscribe there. We do need subscribers. But just by the fact that I know it's like my alter personality is like a foul mouth engineer, scientist that wings it. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's like I'm here to satisfy a certain audience. Hopefully that audience is mostly live. I would like it if it's like actually people can comment in real time and talk to people about the issues and link to links and then call me out when I'm wrong. Just say, this dude's an idiot. He's an absolute moron, dipshit. Don't listen to anything this guy says. In fact, if you think that, you should comment down below. Say this guy's a dipshit, doesn't know what he's talking about. Tell me why. That'd be great. And then I will debunk you on the next show. But, if I didn't have that kind of mentality, man, I'd probably be like pretty nervous up here because there are a lot of people that look at me every single week. There's like thousands of people that look at all my streams in aggregate. And boy, if I ever thought about that, man, I don't know. You see, like I used to throw huge raves, and I used to be a mad doser at the raves. And I ended up hooking up with this one chick that was like kind of slutty, had big tits. And then I had knocked her up, had a baby. It was like some Burning Man party. And then she kind of went down the toilet. She like started doing drugs with downtown people, went down the toilet. And then this girl was raw. She was like hella party kid, turned into just like this candy raver. And I just remember she would sleep around with all kinds of people. And I was trying to get back with her at this one point in time, make her like be a mom again. And then I remember that we were partying, and then she was like being a slut. And I looked at her, I'm like, because I want to be a slut. Like, how do you do that? And I remember she said, I just don't think about it, man. You just got to do it, dude. Like, all right, yeah. So here's my secret. And this sounds a little bit kooky, but trust me, I'm agnostic. I started this thing called the Church of Infinite Simulations. You can find us at GitHub, infinitesimulations.github.io. And so this is the belief that we're in a supercomputer. And I only have a hello post. I'm sorry, I have like 20 websites to update. I'll put out more posts here, but we have this really interesting theory about how the digital photonic neural nets that power the supercomputer work. That's the funnest thing about this Church of the Infinite Super Simulations is you get to theorize of how the supercomputer works. So there's like these digital photonic neural nets. Science! All right, so there's a digital photonic neural net, right? Because like everybody knows how to make digital photonic neural nets, right? So like you got this ball, right? And it's a sphere, right? Inside of this sphere, you're gonna have a bunch of lasers. Hold on, I'm gonna draw them red. Red for the laser, okay? All right, and so these things go out everywhere in all different directions. There's lasers, okay? Inside of the center of this thing, there are some circuit board. We're going to draw another one. Hold on, they're in a lattice. Stupid. Oops. Sorry, these things are held up on a lattice. Because like everybody knows how to make digital photonic neural nets, right? All right, so we got a lattice of our digital photonic neural nets. a whole bunch of these LED tubes. They're spinning out all around the place, going out in all different directions. And so what's going to happen is that these things are going to have photoreceptors on them too. So I'm going to be able to take a laser LED and point it that way. And I'm just going to draw that as orange. Nah. Just going to stick with the same red. So we're going to be able to have a laser all right, and so these things will be able to contact two ways, right? And so I can shine a laser that way, and then I might be able to shine a laser back. So we don't know. These lasers are all pointed all over the place in like different configurations. There's like pointed at different random places inside of the ball. So if it hits one, it's just a probability that it's going to hit one. And so these things will maybe bounce here. But let's say that this thing isn't connected back because the geometry is not perfect. So we would be able to route a signal through multiple of these things. And so basically, essentially, the digital photonic neural nets are like an analog neural net, except for more like a radio mixed in there. And so on inside the center, it's really just like a LED light controller inside of the center. And so this thing basically creates like an internet out of these lasers with it. And then there's like a wireless power transfer technique that you power them with wireless energy transfer. All right, so now you know how to make a digital photonic neural net. Go back to the thing. Science glasses off. No. The digital photonic neural nets have low frequency light forms and high frequency light forms. High frequency light forms are light forms that run code that is able to run that fast. These are easiest described as Neo in the Matrix. And low frequency light forms are light forms that their code runs very slow. And so it's kind of like an ice prison. It goes very slow, so it's like you're frozen in time. And if you ever fuck with me, I will banish you to the low frequency spectrum. So don't fuck with me. So what else is there? There's the chance that we're in a supercomputer, if there's only one supercomputer simulation. The chance that we're in the real 2020 is 50%. There's one simulation of 2020, and then there's the real 2020. So whenever you have more than one simulation, then you end up just multiplying 50% by 50%, or 0.5 times 0.5, and that probability chance is then 0.25, right? Or is it 0.025? I should know this, right? Yeah, 0.25, right? And then your chance, if that's with one, if there's two simulations, your chance of being in the real Earth is 25%. If there's two of them, your chance of being in the real world is 6.25%. And it just keeps going on that way, and eventually it goes to zero. So the chance that you're actually in the real Earth is pretty much zero, because everybody in the universe wants to simulate Earth in 2020 when they started, when they had SpaceX launching a car out into outer space, and Donald Trump. But let's see. What is there? So the entire point of the Church of Infinite Simulations is to try to figure out how to break out of the supercomputer and to control the supercomputer. And so we have this other interesting belief that we are actually on board a starship that is going to go colonize another planet. It's called the Kabuki Starship. And I can also teach you how to make those too. But yeah, so I have an alter ego, Captain Kabuki, and it definitely gives me lots of confidence, but not cocky confidence, because I know that usually that's when I've been wrong. It's whenever I thought I was right. So be aware that confidence definitely can kill a cat with 9 lives. It's very true. In this next article from Hacker News, Umami, self-hosted open source alternative to Google Analytics. Umami is beautiful, free, open source, simple, and fast. You can check it out at umami.is, umami.is. And it's a JavaScript app. It's also available at github.com/mikecao/umami. And it's in JavaScript. And this actually looks fabulous. I'm going to have to say, this code looks really, really, really useful. You should bookmark it. You should star it. You can it'll start out without a star, and then you can click star on it over there. And you should probably learn how to use Git by looking up a Git tutorial. I think it's learn.github.io. Nope. Here's an interesting one. There's a lot of articles. This next article from Hacker News, an example of how brands build fake reviews on Amazon. This is a Reddit post. At first, all my backgrounds, I've been working on Amazon for years. I know all the tricks of getting ranked, so I don't engage in black hat tricks. I did the review game when it wasn't against TOS. As soon as they changed everything, I did not engage. However, because all of my contacts, I'm in the know for a lot of things. Getting reviews and strategies is one of those things. I noticed brands popping up in searches a while back, and they only had 5 reviews. I went into search mode after reviewing reviews and tried to figure out where this company came from. Their website lists no address, but say they can adhere to standards in BC, Canada. I searched more and found an office address in Chinatown, Vancouver. Kept searching around the business, and is registered to an investment group. The suspicious thing that was how the first reviews were worded. People saying that it was the best buy they ever tried, looking for a long time and found this brand. But if the brand is only on Amazon, and they searched, how did they find it? It wasn't ranked organically. Where could you find it until it had a ton of reviews? The reviewers also spaced them out perfectly. They're 1 to 3 reviews a day, 5-star reviews. You can tell them from working on Amazon for years that different categories of have different review rates. For CPG products, the review rate is extremely small. You might expect 1 review for every 1,000 products sold. So being a new brand with no history, getting so many daily reviews is all around the same length and pushes the same BS. These are all paid for reviews. Finally, the Kickstarters that I respond to a handful of these reviews in the comments, only for them to all disappear within a week. Usually when Amazon removes something, they'll send you a notification. There was no notification, and this was how it's done. There's shady Amazon employees who will remove comments and sellers for a fee. I know this because I know someone in China that offers this service. Chances are these Hong Kong people that own this company also made the same contacts. I have and are using that one hold on. And the same contacts I have and are using that have them taken down. So wait to watch over the next month, and reviews keep piling up. Useless, of course. They find this thread. They do still send cards in the Amazon products to pay you for a review. I've definitely had that happen to me multiple times. I was contacted also too by a company that sells laptop docking stations, because I bought one and left a good review, and they offered to give me a free one if I left a good review. To be 100% honest, it was probably a product that I probably would have given them a 5-star review on anyways. I do view that as them just being a good business person. They're definitely, but I've kind of found that just about any electronics product on Amazon is going to be good. Like, most of the stuff that they sell is good. Some of it is just like cheap junk. I haven't found the reviews to be horrible. I found the webcam reviews to be atrocious. I think people don't know hardly anything about webcams. If you are looking for a webcam, I would highly recommend the GoPro Hero 8 or the 7. Probably going to be easier. Or the Akaso is actually pretty good. The Akaso, like V50X Pro, V50 SE or something. That one's pretty good. The Akaso V50X also looks very good. But yeah, you can't really trust what people say about products, because like, they'll get the product and then they'll be excited. They're like, I like this product. I'm going to go give it a review. It worked. And then they'll later find out it was a cheap piece of junk that it broke apart. And maybe about a small fraction of them will update their review. Vast majority of people probably won't remember to do it. So you got to watch out with those Amazon reviews. Not trustworthy at all. In this next article from Fox News Science, pickup-sized asteroid flew within 2,000 miles of Earth on Sunday, and NASA didn't see it. NASA may have updated its plan to protect the planet from asteroid strikes, but a space rock the size of a pickup truck zipped past the planet in distance of approximately 1,830 miles on Sunday, the closest ever recorded. Space Agency did not see it until after it happened. Woo! Wow. Now, I think that would just make a boom in the atmosphere. I wonder if they got any more information on how dangerous that was. Less than a quarter of the Earth's diameter. So that was just like, I mean, that's like getting grazed by a bullet. Just like, whoosh. That's almost, in the universal scale of things, that's like shaving your eyebrows off. Bullets just like shaving your eyebrows off. Woo! Probably wouldn't have hurt us pretty bad though. But yeah, we do need to prepare to be able to live underground. I personally think that we should build vast amounts of underground labyrinths that we have LED grow rooms in, just in case the Earth gets hit by an asteroid. Would be nice to just go down and be able to kick it underground. What do we got? What's this next one? This next article from Hacker News, OpenAI spinning up into deep RL. Welcome to Spinning Up in Deep RL. This is an educational resource produced by OpenAI, and that's the company that Elon Musk put money in to fund They've actually been doing a lot of cool research. I'm using some of their research in order to do this WikiSpy project to monitor Wikipedia for tampering by hostile actors and political bias. Basically, I'm reverse analyzing their business model and using some adversarial hide and seek technique to compress Wikipedia into the RAM on your computer and on your GPU. So this library is for deep reinforcement learning. If you're unfamiliar with reinforcement learning, it's the way that you learn as a human is you get reinforcement from learning. So people will give you rewards. These rewards can classically condition you. So probably heard that term before. We do this also too with AI agents. So you will want to search for the maximum reward with the minimum cost. And so they'll use like one neuron in the neural net will have a reward, and then another neuron will actually have a cost. But this is an absolutely lovely resource that you should check out. If you want to edit it on GitHub, it's github.com/openai/spinning up. And then you could download their entire repo. I'm going to do that right now. That's all you got to do to clone the repo. It'll pull it onto your computer. And then whenever they make updates to the app, you can get the changes. And whenever you save, you can write comments on whatever it was. And if you are interested, I'm actually a GitHub, I would say I'm almost an expert in GitHub. So if you ever are wanting some advice on GitHub, I will definitely would love to teach you. This next article from Hacker News, how to start using microservices. This is coming from hackernoon.com. And in this article, we'll teach you about how you can start using microservices in order to eliminate the monolithic infrastructure of your app. And this is if you are unfamiliar with the benefits of microservices. Microservices are excellent for creating agile technologies where you can actually change things, because when you create a monolith, what you're going to find is that whenever you want to change stuff, you're kind of stuck. The benefit of these microservices is that they are limited in their scope. They just do one thing. So if I want to switch out one microservice with another microservice, it's a lot easier than if I have to change the architecture of a monolith. So I would highly recommend that you check out this article from Hacker Noon. It's a lovely resource. This next article from Hacker News, Ask HN, how do you overcome decision fatigue in software development? It's coming at you via Y Combinator News. Name any kind of project in nearly any domain, and you can choose from a dizzying array of possible language choices and tech stacks. The modern state of software development in nearly any mature ecosystem, and many even that aren't so mature, allows for building just about anything on any platform. Want to build a web app but don't like JavaScript? There's so many options and languages that you can compile to JavaScript, as well as languages in front-end WASM frameworks, Want to write a WebSocket server? Nearly any language can do that now. 2, you want to store your data? Phew! Don't get me started on the infinite ways to do that one, or without a database, or without a server. Just seems overwhelmingly in a particular, or in a part, just because software development is a very long and time-consuming process. You don't want to spend all day on inferior choices that might bite you later or trigger a rewrite decision and fatigue over and over again, where the psychology seems to go. So how do you deal with it? They're going to have a bunch of, they have their solution, but I have my own solution too. The decision fatigue, I have to deal with this a lot, the decision fatigue. In fact, it can be debilitating at times. So what there's called a decision horizon. The decision horizon is as far out as you can see currently that you can make decisions for. So the first most beneficial thing that you can do in order to reduce decision fatigue is to eliminate as many of the make as many decisions as you can for the foreseeable horizon as soon as possible. You're going to find this is something that I learned with my first startup company, was that I had bit off more than I could chew with this Symmetry Live MIDI controller with a built-in sound card and a touchscreen audio interface, laptop hard drive, got the kitchen sink in there, even got a VST effects processor and whatever, and didn't get hardly any of it done. Just ended up giving up because it was way more than I could bite off. The number one problem that I had faced with this entire startup was that I had put off these decisions, making a lot of things, decisions that I could have done a long time ago. And I had put them up and they built up, and then I went around and I told all my friends, here's my MIDI controller and does these things. I got a prototype somewhere, all the circuits, except for the sound card. I have that in the computer, never made it. And then after all these things started to build up, all these decisions, then I started to get really serious about it. At this point in time, there's so many different options involved in. I could get this chipset, I could use this power supply, I could go with this monitor, or I could go with a tablet, or I could use a laptop. I could just make it just a tablet docking station that works with the laptop, or I can make it so that it's a wireless display, right? I'm like, oh man, you can see all right away. It's like, man, there's all these options. What the hell are you talking? There's so many different complicated words here. And then you start tweaking options. You start putting stuff back and forth. And it's like, next thing you know, all your day is consumed with just handling time. What you got to understand about handling time, I didn't understand handling time until the first time I started to build an LED light controller. I was trying to save some money, and I was dumb enough to I was trying to make this art installation for a music festival, and I wanted to make my own LED rope light that we're gonna solder up all the LEDs, because I had this idea that it was gonna be just red, green, and blue, and then white, and then it was gonna be brighter, because I couldn't do that with LED rope lights because I wanted this specific look. So I was like, all right, make some LED rope light. So order all the parts, end up spending probably just about the same amount of money as the LED rope light that was pre-made. Start putting it all together. There's like thousands of LEDs. And I just thought I'd like, oh yeah, we'll just whip it out in a day, right? Yeah, right, whip it out in a day. And then we start soldering the components together. And then like instantly, it hit me. This is going to take forever. I had already spent all of the money on the parts, so I couldn't go buy new parts. And so we tried to make it work. And we sat there and soldered with my buddy, Zach Miltenberger, and we got a whole mob of these rave kids to come through and like help us tape this stuff together. And after weeks of just soldering, my hands hurt so bad from handling LEDs. They were poking me, and from like cutting speaker wires, that we were just like exhausted. And then like we barely, okay, so I didn't get the electronics done, but I showed up to the festival with like this black light sensitive string thing, which was actually wicked, way cooler than I thought it was going to be. So, but I didn't take into account the handling time of each one of these wires. I'm like, oh, I thought I'd just be like, oh, geez, right? No, there's like handling time involved in these things. When you have a bazillion different parts, then the handling time starts to get very large. And the handling time will then slowly start to predominate over the cost of the other things in there. That's the point in time where it's really bad. You don't want to do that. When your handling time is starting to gobble up time and everything else, then you are about to lose. This is the worst case scenario that you can do. So if you want to get rid of decision fatigue, what you have to do is you have to first recognize when you are able to make decisions at. Typically, the vast majority of people, they're only going to be able to make decisions very well in the morning. When it gets to be later on in that day, you will start to get decision fatigue. So you want to make as many decisions as you can in the beginning of the day, but you don't want to just sit there and make decisions all day, because then you're not going to get any work done. You have to make a X number of decisions of what the work is going to be done, and then be able to get the work done, because you got a bazillion. I run startups by myself, multiple of them. So I crank out work. And if I sit there in like work with my notebooks, right? Like I will sit there all day just doing decisions, and then I'll go into this mode of having options. Options are bad. You don't want options. These are like the nightmare. If you have a bazillion options, you're just going to sit there freaking out. It's like you're looking at a menu at a restaurant and you don't know, like you've never tried any of the things and you don't know what to get. So you will sit there and stare at the menu. So this can be why it's easier for some people to find dates in small towns. Okay, decision fatigue. So we have a very good thing that you can do, which I'm going to say I'm not the best at. I do attempt to do it, but you want to have a management Monday and a 1 day per month. You want to go through your logs. So me personally, I have all these logs, these log books, and I've been not writing them. So I have a system set up where I have these log books, and I have this language called IMU language that allows me to like interact with GitHub. So if I want to upload my drawings, and that's that one. If I want to upload my drawings, I'm able to, with my language that I created, upload my drawings just by naming it an image file format in the header. This is IMU language or IMUL, and then that will show up in the issue ticket for the session. That's a more complicated issue-driven development science development processes. Very advanced. I have a whole channel that does that. Cooking with Kale. But, okay, so the decision fatigue. So what these logs, what you need to do is you want to review them every single week. Now, recently I've been doing Real Simple News. So I have not been doing engineering for a month because the show occupies all my time. So you should donate to the show if you have any extra money that you want to help keep the show going and improving, because I want to make it really cool. But each and every single week, you want to go through your logs for that week And so, hold on. What is this? Just trying to make sure it was my personal journal. I'm like, what am I showing these people? Like, for instance, Wiki Spy. On this particular day, I went through and I wrote an algorithm, load test users, load dummy Wikipedia, push articles out to the with the crab stack, run the fact-checking article algorithm, and then search for flagged contributors. So this is I don't know. This is a new project, the Wiki Spy thing. It's trying to bust Chinese spies on Wikipedia by reverse analyzing the psychological profile of the Wikipedia contributor using a business model canvas and their contribute log and some neural nets. I haven't figured out everything about it, but every single week you want to go through and you want to look at what you did that week, and you want to plot out your progress for what you're going to do, and you want to identify what are the decisions that week that you are going to have to face. And so I don't have any examples of this, so I'm kind of being an armchair manager here at this point in time, because I'm just working by myself, so I just freestyle it sometimes, but I do try to do this as much as I can. Once per week, review all of the logs for that week, and then again do that once per month. And what this does is it causes the neurons that fire together to wire together in a non-confused way, because you can overlearn. It's a concept in artificial intelligence called neural net overfitting. This is where you've trained your neural net too long and then your accuracy starts to go down. This is why you need to go to sleep every night at a decent time. But when you, every single day, usually when I'm doing Cooking with Kale, I've been doing Real Simple News, so I haven't been doing that. On my show where I do the document camera, I review every single day, and then I'll take the video. So I'll work on video, and then I'll review the video, and then I'll read the notes, and then I'll set out. Wait a minute, hold on. Right. Like, this was a night session for Cooking with Kale. It says, last time I explained my strategy for the 1 gig wiki challenge. I'm trying to fit Wikipedia into 1 gigabyte. It's insane. That's just like insane. But hey man, if you can get that, it's like 16,000 compression ratio, you can do that, man. You're the man, right? Probably not going to hit 1 gigabyte, but that is the goal. So I'm going to use this infinite cache exploit to unzip Wikipedia into neural net code. I'm going to basically write some use case fact check articles in the Wiki Spy, and then I write down, usually I was documenting requirements. So usually what you want to do here is you want to write 3 things. Usually I have 3 things. Like this day was like, last time I started the 1 gig wiki challenge and I learned the PyTest and Flask. Today I'm going to do, then I have document requirements, and then detail, add a histogram of the Wikipedia contributors to the articles. So you show a histogram of their contributes to specific articles, and then this histogram you can translate that into the neural network, and then the neural network can show you the probability chance that person is a Chinese spy tampering with Wikipedia, or whether or not they're a crazy leftist lunatic from the universities, or whether or not that university got a donation from the Confucius Institute. So do I have any better examples? Here was the pandemic cookbook when I was making the open source ventilators for last time I filled out the markdown cookbook template. Today I'm going to update the sickbay repo. So when I do these things, I put issue tickets in here, and the issue tickets, you can go to issue 81 over here on GitHub. And then, or if you want to go to better example is github.com/Kabuki Starship / script 2, and then you can see through here when you go into the issues on the GitHub issues, I put in these changes and these details things. So a change is something that changes the architecture of the project, which is basically something that it's a red flag. Like we're going to do something that's like, we could break a lot of stuff and then there's going to be a lot of artifacts. Like we got to be real rigorous when we go through that. When we change these things, every single thing that we change, we fix. Like all if we rename something, we got to go through all the files and make sure that we rename everything. If we change the description of something, we have to make sure that we update the description in these different places. These are called artifacts, change artifacts. It's something called change management control. Hold on, no. Change control or change management. It's a concept in software engineering. And there are also other things such as detail. And so inside of these things, I use a problem and solution statement. I will say this is the type of issue. This is a production issue. The problem is no one has been using the code, so the Chinese room code is blocked off. I still have to update the scanner with new data types. The old dictionary code works, but the new code that reuses the loom and table, this code is not working. So I need to add an additional macro for script 2 experimental. Allows me to then isolate the experimental code on a different seam, slice up that project into like an onion. We can build up layers, and layers on top of it. As you can see, there's a lot of decisions. There's definitely been many, many thousands of decisions that have gone into the production of this, which is one of the fastest. Has the fastest integer to string algorithm, which optimizes all other number printing algorithms. And hold on, what about this? Decision fatigue. So inside of this thing, there's this little data thing for the spec. So I spent years of my life editing these documents for a data specification in order to fit. Well, we're using this for the WikiSpy to fit the Wikipedia into 1 gig of memory. Attempt to, yeah, probably not going to happen. So I remember many, many months sitting around sifting through this data types table. So I'm trying to pack up. I'm trying to like format all the data types into like some ubiquitous table to where I could put any kind of data type all up into the same place. And I sat here making decisions, just sitting here with decision fatigue for months and months and months and months and months and months. Eventually, I just gave up on it and started moving in onto Python. And I haven't come back to it. Now I'm coming back to it with the WikiSpy so I can bust these Chinese spies. But if there's any sort of advice that I can give to you is it is dangerous to just sit there and stare at the menu at the restaurant and not pick something. It is far better that you just just pick something off of the menu, just random, than it is for you to just sit there and have decision fatigue looking at all the different options on the menu, because that's not what you want to do. You want to actually implement the code. Because I'm about maybe 95, maybe 90% done with this project. And I spent years on it and it's perfect. It's one of the fastest text printing libraries out there. It is wicked. It has the universal printer. It prints Unicode right in C++. But, I spent so much time on all these decisions. We never even used it. So all of the time was wasted. It was just gone. It was wasted because I sat there with decision fatigue for many, many years. So I've learned now from this process that you have to just basically make a decision, any decision. And you need to get these decisions off the plate. You have to actually get them taken care of. I highly recommend using the GitHub issue tracking system. Each and every single time when you make a decision, I would highly recommend that you make a problem solution statement, that you identify the mission specifically that what you're trying to do. Okay, so I've updated these things. So this should be a mission. The name of these things, this should absolutely be a mission. It should be a mission. So when I say this, I start it with a verb. I'm detailing something, so I'm going to block off. So this is a verb. I'm saying this is a small detail, so it's not like a fundamental breaking change. I'm going to block off this code. Change. I'm going to add this book. So when I add this book, it's going to break everything because everything just got redone in order to share the code between the different data structures. It's kind of complicated. I can understand. You don't understand what I'm saying, but these just being able to put in one of these issues, just click new issue and like detail, change XYZ to do ABC, issue type, demo. The ABC isn't working with the blah, blah, blah. So the solution is to switch to XYZ because of hell yeah. This is an example. Hierarchy. I would then put in my session ticket. I can put a thing right there. I can submit it. And on this issue ticket, bam, cooking with kale / cooking with kale 1. That's going to pop up issue ticket number 1. So I can show you with this system, I can show you what work was done on that day using this session ticket format. And you can also show what work was done on different projects by linking through here. So this creates institutionalized knowledge using a process called issue-driven development. And issue-driven development will dramatically reduce your decision fatigue by allowing you to utilize leverage the power of Markdown on GitHub to create institutionalized knowledge through the use of the IMU language and issue-driven development techniques. If you want to know more about that, you should check out the A Startup Cookbook. If you want to contribute, it is an open source cookbook, and you can find out more about it at github.com/A*startup. That is a A-star algorithm applied to business model canvas, but there's not a lot of, don't expect a finished book. It's an open source project. If you are a business expert and you want to contribute knowledge to this book, that would be great. This next article from Hacker News, Mux is looking for developers familiar with WebRTC/video to build new things. You can find them at mux.com, mux.com/jobs. I don't know who those people are, but I like hackers, right? These articles are for the next episode of Real Simple News with Cale McCullough. Should be a good one. In this next article from Fox News Science, experts believe Neptune and Uranus is primarily composed of water. NASA has proposed a mission to visit Neptune's moon, Triton, which could be an ocean capable of supporting life. In the interim, researchers are looking at water on both ice giants Neptune and Uranus. So if anybody wants to help me build a spaceship, I'm building an open source spaceship. There's hardly any work done, but it's based off of the black hole physics theory that I saw. I'm trying to build an autopilot for it eventually, but I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how the autopilot works. I think I have a fair good design for the autopilot. We've done a little bit of work on Cooking with Kale on it, but if anybody wants to help, you should DM me. You should check me out on Facebook, Kale McCullough on Facebook. Follow me. And you can DM me. I do actually talk to people. I am not one of those fake people who is not a friend. I am actually a chill homie. And if you know of any cool parties, you should hit me up. This next article from Hacker News Best, Amazon MLU's University is making its online courses available to the public. You can find these at where can you find these? You can find the link at issue ticket 81, realsimplenews.net/issue 81. And then you go down to the bottom and you click on the GitHub issue ticket, and then you'll see the links there. Because I am trying to bring you over to GitHub. Machine learning is a field of computational science that analyzes patterns and structures in data to help with learning, reasoning, and decision making without human interaction. Data is the lifeblood of business, and machine learning helps identify signals amongst the data noise. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. It's at the center of Amazon's business and blah, blah, blah. If you want to know more about machine learning, they put all of their resources up there for free. Is it amazon.science? Yeah, that's awesome. I like all these free ML learning resources. It's so difficult that like you still need to go to school, honestly, to understand the math. But it is really nice that they have the programs for free on the internet. I don't have much faith in most people who learned how to program that way. But I do have faith in people who are self-taught programmers to do absolutely amazing things. So you can also too do that. I also too use Udacity and Udemy too. I think that those are two really good websites to check out. This next article from Hacker News Best, Fungus at Chernobyl absorbs radiation via radiosynthesis. It's coming at you from technologynetworks.com. The Earth's atmosphere and magnetic fields protect humans from harmful radiation. However, it's a known fact that astronauts are exposed to radiation levels that are 20-fold higher than those found on planet Earth. NASA recently did an experiment with the International Space Station after realizing that a fungus growing near Chernobyl site was thriving on nuclear radiation because of radiosynthesis. Fungus was using melanin to convert gamma radiation into chemical energy. Therefore, space scientists grew the fungus inside of the ISS for a month and analyzed its ability to block radiation. Experiments showed that the Chernobyl fungus, now identified as Cladosporium cephalosporium, was able to block some of the incoming radiation. This finding has implications for future space missions. Scientists are thinking of shielding astronauts and space objects with a layer of radiation-absorbing protective fungus. Meanwhile, let let's await further update from NASA. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section. This next article from Hacker News, Bespoke Synth, a software modular synth. This is an open source project you can find at github.com/AWWBES/BESPOKESYNTH. And this project is written in C++ because they have juice, obviously. Definitely, yep, C++, arpeggiator. Juice, if you're unfamiliar, is a very good C++ API that is heavily in use in the music industry. I've used it for my MIDI controller in the past. They have a VST software synthesizer host, or virtual instrument host. Well, it looks like they have a vocoder. Beat plot. Wow, man, this, woo! Holy wow! This is huge. This is massive. Wow. VST Windows. So he's got the VST host in here. Transport control, synths, shutter control, splitter, sliders. Woo! Man. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. You should star the repo. Contribute. If you want to contribute, you can fork it. I am going to clone the repo. While that's downloading here, we can just move on to the next article. This next article from Hacker News, a new type of taste cell has been discovered in your taste buds. A new population of taste cells that can detect multiple types of stimuli has been identified. Researchers say that the taste cells can either be selective or generally responsive to stimuli, and the presence of the new cells provide insight to how taste information is sent to the brain for processing. If you want to read more about this article, you can find a link to it at realsimplenews.net/issue 81, and then click on the link to GitHub there, where you'll find the link to the article. This next article from Hacker News, a joke about the difference between mathematicians and physicists. This is an excerpt from The Man Who Loved Only Numbers, the difference between physicists and mathematicians. The Man Who Loved Only Numbers by Paul Hoffman is a biography about the memorable personality of Paul Erdos, the prolific mathematician who published with over 500 collaborators. Erdos, who is well known for his contributions to number theory, set theory, probability theory, graph theory, and more. Woo! As the invention of Erdős' number, a mixture of one proximity to having collaborated with him, a measure of one's proximity to having collaborated with him, is of course a subject himself. That said, Hoffman's biography of him, there's a little bit of about the behavior of mathematicians and a lone physicist that does well to embody the spiritual and cognitive difference between the two groups, both of which are shared in a passion for mathematical thinking and nevertheless are separable beasts. The excerpt of interest tells of mathematics conference in which the groups of mathematicians return to the coffee table after talk only to find a puzzle. The rest filled out and raced towards a folding table that supported two large brown plastic tanks, one labeled with caffeine, the other labeled without caffeine. The mathematicians had already tanked up once before the graph theorist talked, and now the labels in the tanks were curiously switched. The mathematicians were in a tizzy and started puzzled at the tanks, their collective brain power, fine for discerning the latest wrinkles in infinite graph theory, was stalling out on the case of the true Joe. Finally, a light bulb went off in the jovial beer-bellied fellow in a Joy of Sets t-shirts. He stepped forward and filled his styrofoam cup half from one tank and half from the other. I see, laughed one of his compatriots, the game theoretic solution. I have another solution, said a thin man whose hands trembled slightly, apparently from a caffeine high. He filled his cup a quarter full of one of the tanks. This is an asymptomatic This is the asymptotic solution, he announced. I'm already so wired, I only want a little bit more. Whatever is in the cup, I win. A bystander who was a physicist rather than a magician didn't understand the need for all his sophisticated thinking. He pointed to the tank that was bigger than the other one, and the bigger tank presumably held caffeinated coffee, since more people drank it than decaf. The mathematician had taken aback by the simplicity of the solution. Our different approaches, said the physicist, remind me of an old joke. A physicist and a magician are flying cross-country together. Each is keeping a diary of the trip. The fly over a white horse in Iowa. The physicist writes, there was a white horse in Iowa. The mathematician writes, there exists somewhere in Midwest a horse white on top. For all that has been written about the difference between physicists and mathematicians, especially the goal of illuminating their inner minds, this passage provokes both a reasonable and illustration of a good laugh. That's funny. Okay, so the joke, if you don't get the joke, because vast majority of you totally missed the joke here, is that the physics people wrote down in their journals, you know how like my journal, right? I'm like the physics dude, right? Like I wrote it all in my journal. I documented what I did in my journal. And then what did the mathematicians do? Who said, there exists somewhere in the Midwest a horse white on top. Kind of funny. This next article from Hacker News, building a command line tool to help with Google searches. This is from John Leckberg. It's an article on how you can automate your Google searches using Python. And this can help you in a number of ways. You can keep tabs on if you're trying to search for something and you want that any search results to pop up right away. You can use some of these scripts in here. Shows you how the scripts work and how you can load them. So you can find a link to this article at realsimplenews.net/issue 81, where you can click on the link GitHub at the bottom, and then you'll find a link to this. This next article from Hacker News, building function tree, a graphical Python profiler. This is from hacks.mozilla.org, building function trace, a graphical Python profiler. This will allow you to basically make a cool little graph about all the different function calls. Shows you the depth that the function call made. And then you can use this then to optimize your function calls by looking for the ones that have very long depths and then reducing those function calls to be as flat as possible so that you can utilize the C-like behavior of Python as much as possible. You can find the link to that at realsimplenews.net/issue 81. We have one more, and then that's going to be it for tonight. This next article from Hacker News. Oh, wait, hold on. Wrong one. Oops. Visual game editor for Pixie.js. You can find this at ctjs.rocks. It's a 2D game editor in JavaScript, right? And so it's just a tile editor, open source game engine. Find it out at github.com/ct-js/ct-js again, which that is actually kind of rather difficult to say. So you should go there and start the repo. And if you want to contribute to it, you can fork the repo. I'm going to go ahead and clone the code. And with that, we're done here for today. Thank you very much for watching Real Simple News with Science on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. This was the first episode, and I'm going to continue to do it. Probably with less hacker stuff and more... Yeah, it's my first time doing the show. Obviously, most people are going to tune out on the programming stuff, but I thought that there was some good value to be had. I think that we... put the science goggles on and we got some legit useful stuff. I'm pretty stoked up on the results from the black hole. This was a lot better than the last time that I had actually drawn this. This actually makes quite a bit of sense. I don't know about you. I don't think that gravity is a pulling force. I definitely think that gravity is a pushing force and that space is actually energy itself. That it actually energy and mass can display, just like Einstein said, energy and mass can displace space. And so the energy is coming from the space trying to become one again and pushing it down instead of pulling it down. And oh, I left out one little subtle detail that's actually incredibly important. I brought up why does the satellites slow down when they go very fast? I kind of skipped over it, and I don't think anybody noticed. But if anybody did notice, the reason why the satellites slow down, the time slows down when you go very fast, is because there's actually stuff in the phonons when you're moving, the atoms, it's just like you're in kind of like a fluid. The atoms are, when you move, it's just like you're in water, like the things are moving and then it causes ripples. It's like kind of like a fluid, but it's not exactly like a fluid. When they move, the phonons exchange energy with the quantum field around it. And then this energy causes a energy differential that causes... I started talking about it with the density, and then I spaced out. There was a little subtle detail missing in there that there's also... so there's the density issue on the one side of the atom where there's fields going out, but then there's more space here, right? But then the faster that you go, the more quantum field the phonons will disrupt. And then these push back, and this causes the heat exchange across the vacuum from the phonons. And this is the reason why time slows down when you go really fast. It's just basically like the atoms are just literally not moving as fast. And so what can you do that's cool about that? So means basically what this means is that it's not actually impossible to break the light speed barrier, that they did their physics wrong, and that their calculation that you would need infinite mass was based on rocket physics, and that there's actually an alternative method to break the light speed barrier using these physics rules. And so if you want to check that out, you can check out the Kabuki Starship cookbook, which is kind of, you can't really check it out right now, but in the future, just check out the Kabuki Starship cookbook, the open source Starship, and you'll see how you can build a Kabuki Starship with digital photonic neural nets and colonize other planets by sending these little things, these little solar sails that power with the laser, and they've got these little, basically little planes, little mini planes on them with darts, and they can fly. They send them over another planet by blasting them with the laser beam, and then they go around the planet, and then they stick in the neck of animals there and inject them with a DNA virus so that we could colonize other planets. And then while that planet will be evolving, we'll send Kabuki Starships there. So this is the open source Kabuki Starship, and this is why I am called Captain Kabuki. And if you like this, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Share this video with your friends, and contribute on GitHub. You can sign up at github.com/Kabuki Starship, where you can pick any of the open source projects that you would like to contribute to. There's also the A-Star startup, as well as the Oregon Cooler, as well as the Freedom Government. We have an absolute massive amount of open source technologies that you can contribute to, or you can make a donation at realsimplenews.net/issue81, where you can scroll down at the bottom of the page, and there's a donate button where you can make donations, and all donations go to science. So thank you very much for watching. And as I say every time, farewell, sayonara, Godspeed, and peace be with you in your journeys.